Greater than, on the day I thought I'd be celebrating 10 years of love, I was watching my husband exchange vows with another woman. Everyone told me to cry, to break, to disappear. But instead, I built something he could never destroy, his downfall. The sound of champagne glasses clinking used to fill my heart with joy. It meant celebration. It meant love. It meant Daniel. But that morning, the sound came from the television in my living room, a live stream of his wedding. I sat frozen on the couch, the remote slipping from my fingers, my breath shallow and uneven. Daniel Collins, the man who once swore he would grow old with me, was standing at an altar decorated with white roses, beside another woman. My husband, my love, my betrayer. I had bought a dress for that evening. Simple white silk. He always said he loved me best when I was just me, not dressed to impress, not trying too hard. That dress was still laid out on the bed upstairs, waiting for a dinner that would never happen. My fingers curled into my palms until my nails pressed against my skin. On the television, his voice echoed clear and strong. I promise to love you forever. I had heard those exact words 10 years earlier. This time, they were meant for someone else. Her name was Clara, his assistant. She stood there glowing in a gold gown that shimmered under the soft lights of the garden where the ceremony was taking place. I remembered her smile, the one that always seemed a little too warm when she greeted him at the office. The way she'd lean in a little too close when handing him a file. I had noticed, I had seen, but I had wanted to believe that love, our love, was stronger than temptation. I was wrong. My phone rang. Maya, my best friend since college. Lily, are you watching this? Her voice was trembling, a mixture of anger and heartbreak. Say something. Tell me you're okay. I swallowed hard. The tears should have come by then. But they didn't. It wasn't because I didn't hurt. It was because the pain sat so deep inside me, it had turned into something colder. Sharper. Yes, I said softly. I'm watching. Lily, you need to. No, I cut her off. I don't need to do anything right now. Don't let him take everything, she whispered urgently. Remember, half of that company is yours. Half. The word rang through my mind like a bell. Half of everything. The mansion, the cars, the company we built from nothing. We started as two broke dreamers in a cramped apartment, eating instant noodles and sharing one laptop to build pitch decks for investors. I worked behind the scenes, late nights, early mornings, meeting investors, cleaning the office when we couldn't afford help. I was his partner in every way that mattered. But when the money came, when the power came, he said, "You don't need to work anymore, Lily. I'll take care of everything." He meant, stay quiet while I shine. He took the spotlight. I stood behind it. For 10 years, I placed the phone down and took a long breath. On the television, they exchanged rings. A cheer rose from the guests. I poured myself a glass of wine, the same one we always used to toast on our anniversaries. But this time, I lifted the glass to no one. A single thought settled in my mind with terrifying clarity: he thinks I'll disappear quietly. But I wouldn't cry. I wouldn't break. I wouldn't beg. I went upstairs and opened the safe hidden behind the painting above our bed. I still remembered the day he installed it, smiling at me as he said, "Ours. Always ours." Inside were the files and documents he never thought I'd touch. Power of attorney, partnership agreements, legal documents with my name on them. He thought I'd never use them. He thought I'd always love him too much to hurt him. That was his first mistake. The next morning, I walked into D&M Technologies headquarters wearing a cream suit I hadn't put on in years. My heels clicked on the marble floor, drawing the eyes of employees who whispered in corners. They had all seen the wedding on social media. Daniel wasn't just my husband, he was their boss. And now, he belonged to someone else. The receptionist's voice trembled. "Mrs. Collins, good morning." I smiled politely. "Good morning. Please let the board know I'll be using my access today." She blinked. No one questioned me. I wasn't just the wife. I was co-founder, and that mattered more than most people remembered. Inside the boardroom, executives sat in a confused silence as I walked in. A few stood to greet me, unsure what to say. I placed a thick folder on the table and spoke calmly, my voice steady despite the storm swirling inside me. "From today," I said, "all internal communications, patents, and pending contracts will go through me for review." One of the senior managers, a man who'd always kissed Daniel's shoes, cleared his throat nervously. "Mrs. Collins, shouldn't this be discussed with Mr. Collins? I slid a document across the table, the one Daniel had signed 2 years ago when he expanded into Asia. It gave me full legal authority in the event of his absence. He had forgotten it existed. I hadn't. There's no need, I replied. I have full authority. The silence that followed was my first quiet victory. I left the room with my head held high. By the time Daniel returned from his honeymoon, the ground beneath him would no longer be stable. That night, I opened my laptop and pulled out old contacts, investors I had charmed over coffee, partners I had convinced to take a risk on us, friends who still remembered the quiet, determined woman behind Daniel's success. They remembered me, and when I called, they listened. Daniel's new project is unstable, I said simply. You have 2 choices, stay with him and lose everything, or move your assets with me. I have the proof. Contracts were paused. Funds were withheld. Whispers began to spread. Investors grew restless. Board members started questioning. It didn't take long for Daniel to notice. 3 nights later, he showed up at our old home. The rain poured down hard, soaking through his expensive suit. His hair was messy, his jaw tight. I opened the door slowly, standing there in my silk robe, calm in a way that frightened him. What the hell are you doing, Lily? He demanded. His voice cracked, but he tried to sound powerful. You can't do this. I tilted my head. Can't I? You're destroying what we built. I stepped forward, my voice steady and cold. We didn't build this, Daniel. I did. You forgot who was holding everything up while you stood on the stage smiling. His eyes widened as the truth hit him. He looked smaller then, like a king who suddenly realized his crown was borrowed. You don't understand, he whispered. I love you. I just, save it. My voice was like steel. You made your choice. You walked down that aisle. And now I'm walking away, with everything you thought you could take from me. The rain roared outside, but inside, it was silent. He stared at me like he didn't recognize the woman standing in front of him. Maybe he didn't, because for 10 years, I had been soft, forgiving, quiet. But now I was the storm. As he stood there, dripping and speechless, I felt no tears. No regret, just a calm power spreading through me. I closed the door gently in his face. That night, I stood by the window, watching the rain slide down the glass. He thought he broke me. But he had only unlocked a version of me he had never imagined. And that was just the beginning. When he thought he had lost only his company, he didn't know I was about to take away the one thing he valued more, his reputation. 3 weeks after Daniel's rain-soaked visit, his empire was cracking from every direction. The same board members who once toasted him as a visionary were now whispering in corridors, sending late-night emails filled with concern and doubt. The stock price had dipped, investors were withdrawing, and whispers of fraud had begun to spread through the industry like wildfire. And Daniel had no idea who was behind it. He probably still believed his downfall was just bad luck. But I knew luck had nothing to do with it. Precision did. Every morning, I'd wake up early, pour my coffee, and watch the news quietly as reports about D&M Technologies appeared. The once perfect image of Daniel Collins, the self-made genius, the golden entrepreneur, was now tainted with questions. Irregularities in company finances, one anchor announced. Unverified international contracts, another said. I took a small sip of coffee and smiled. This was only the beginning. I didn't rush. I let him squirm. I wanted him to feel what I had felt, helpless, blindsided, betrayed. My silence was my weapon. While Daniel tried to fix the surface, I was dismantling the foundation. Investors who once trusted him now called me for advice. I gave them calm, rational suggestions: withdraw here, pause there, investigate quietly. And when the first investigation began, Daniel finally realized I wasn't just watching. I was orchestrating. He tried calling me, of course. Dozens of times, sometimes in the middle of the night. At first, I ignored him. But one evening, I picked up. Lily, his voice cracked through the receiver, exhausted and desperate. Please, we can fix this. I made a mistake. I love you, I always have. You can't keep doing this to me. To you, I repeated slowly, my voice quiet but sharp. Daniel, you did this to yourself. You lied, you betrayed, you destroyed what we built. I was wrong, he whispered. I was stupid. Yes, I said softly. You were. He stayed silent for a moment. Then his tone changed. his old arrogance seeping back. You won't win. You're angry now, but you'll stop. You always do. I smiled to myself. You're mistaking silence for surrender, Daniel. It's not the same thing. I hung up before he could respond. After that call, I made my next move. I met with a man named Victor Chen, the CEO of Technova Corp., one of D&M's fiercest competitors. We had met years earlier when Daniel was still trying to outshine him. Victor respected me, even back then, when I was just the wife. This time, I walked into his office not as someone's shadow, but as the storm on the horizon. Victor, I said, sitting across from him. How would you like to own the company that's been trying to destroy yours for years? He raised an eyebrow, intrigued. You have my attention. I'm selling my shares in D&M, I explained. Quietly. To you. If you move fast, you'll own controlling interest before Daniel even knows what's happening. Victor leaned back, a slow smile forming. That's bold, Mrs. Collins. Not Mrs., I corrected him gently. Just Lily now. Within 2 weeks, the deal was done. Every legal paper signed, every share transferred, every asset moved under new control. When the announcement hit the media, Technova acquires D&M Technologies, Daniel's world imploded. He had lost his company, his throne, his title, his pride. The next morning, the board meeting was called. I was invited, not as an owner anymore, but as a guest of the new management. The irony wasn't lost on me. When I entered the room, the air was thick with tension. Daniel sat at the head of the table, pale, disheveled, his eyes hollow. The man who once commanded rooms with confidence now looked like he hadn't slept in days. He glared at me as I took a seat across from him. You did this, he said through clenched teeth. I folded my hands. I didn't do anything you didn't deserve. You ruined me. I met his gaze, steady and calm. No, Daniel, I revealed you. Victor cleared his throat. Mr. Collins, as part of the acquisition, you'll be stepping down effective immediately. Daniel turned to him, his voice breaking. You can't do this. This is my company. Victor looked at me briefly before replying, it was your company. Until you handed all your power to someone smarter. The room fell silent. Daniel's face turned red with anger, then pale again. I didn't enjoy watching him crumble, not in the way people might expect. It wasn't revenge that satisfied me, it was closure. Watching him face the truth of what he'd done, what he'd lost, was like finally exhaling after holding my breath for years. When the meeting ended, I stood up and looked at him one last time. This isn't revenge, Daniel, I said quietly. It's consequence. You built an empire on betrayal. I just showed the world what it was really made of. I walked out of that room without looking back. Months passed. The tabloids feasted on the story. The CEO who lost everything, love, lies, and the fall of D&M. Clara tried to play the victim online, claiming I had bullied her, that Daniel was misunderstood. But when leaked emails showed she'd been paid consulting fees from company funds before their affair became public sympathy turned to disgust. Their golden image shattered completely. Sponsors pulled away. Their faces disappeared from magazine covers. Meanwhile, I built something new. Something mine. I opened L & County Consulting, a firm that helped women rebuild their careers after betrayal, divorced women, widows, partners who had been erased from their own businesses. The first office was small, tucked between 2 cafes, but every inch of it felt like freedom. The first day, when I placed the sign on the door with my own hands, I felt the quiet triumph of starting again. One evening, I received a letter. No name on the envelope, just a single sentence written in Daniel's handwriting. Greater than, you were right. I lost everything because I forgot who believed in me first. I folded it carefully and placed it in a drawer. I didn't need to respond. Some endings don't need words. A year later, I was invited to speak at a women's business summit. Standing on stage, looking out at hundreds of faces, I told them what I had learned: strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, not anymore. The applause was loud, but what moved me most was the quiet nods from women who understood exactly what that meant. Every now and then, I still saw Daniel in the news, another failed startup, another lawsuit, another attempt to rise again. He was chasing something he had already destroyed. And maybe he'd never understand that losing me wasn't just losing a wife, it was losing the heart of everything he had built. I didn't hate him anymore. Hate takes too much energy. What I felt now was peace. A deep, steady peace that comes when you stop waiting for an apology and build your own happiness instead. That night, I stood by the window of my office, watching the city lights flicker below. My reflection stared back, stronger, wiser, freer. Once, I was the woman behind a powerful man. Now, I was the woman who built her own empire. He married his mistress thinking he'd found something better. But in the end, he lost it all. Because the woman he betrayed didn't cry, she created a legacy he could never buy back.